Well, we've been in the two of the worst affected regions outside Sendai in one of the suburbs and about 60 kilometers up the coast in one of the coastal towns which was terribly affected by the tsunami on Friday. We've been looking for British nationals who may have been living in or visiting the area and liaising with the local authorities who've been giving us details of British citizens living in the area with their names and addresses so that we can begin to track down the names of and the whereabouts of people who are so far unaccounted for. The damage in these areas has been considerable. We've seen the full effects of the tsunami with piles of cars and debris everywhere we've seen on the main roads out of Sendai towards the coast. Up in the coastal regions, we've seen severe structural damage, power supplies cut, water supplies cut, villages and towns in a state of complete shock after what has been a terrible event. We've talked to local people and the local authorities, and I have to say there is an extraordinarily high degree of courage and resilience as people begin the task of searching and for people to rescue and identifying people who've been unaccounted for. But at the moment, 3 days after the earthquake, it's a situation which is very uncertain because there are a very large number of people who so far haven't been accounted for.
And what about your investigations in terms of the Britons? Do you know how many you're talking about? Are there any involved at all up here?
We must assume that there are Britons involved up here. We've got a long list of names that we're working through that have been given to us from families and friends who've contacted our crisis centre in the UK. We're eliminating a large number of those as they report that they're safe or were otherwise unaffected by the earthquake. But we know that there were Britons in and around the Sendai region and more widely where the full effects of the earthquake have been felt. And, of course, not all of those have so far been accounted for. We were able yesterday afternoon, we brought a consular team into Sendai yesterday. We brought 2 more teams in today to identify a number of Britons living in and around Sendai who are safe, and we've been able to feed those names back, and their families are now reassured that their loved ones are safe. But there are other Britons who have so far not been heard from, and it's a very much a developing situation because there are a large number of people who have not been accounted for, and consequently the authorities are still trying to bring some clarity to what is a very uncertain situation. But our 3 consular teams will be working now, based in Sendai, on the task of identifying and assisting any British nationals who need our help in the aftermath of what has been a terrible earthquake.
Well, you described it as a long list. How many people are on those lists? How many families in the UK have phoned to report somebody missing or unaccounted for?
Well, I don't want to get into precise numbers because the numbers are constantly changing. The list of people who've contacted the crisis centre is very long because,
the tens, or is it in the hundreds?
We have around 17,000 British nationals living in Japan, and hundreds of thousands each year who are visiting and travelling in Japan. So the list of people who've contacted the crisis centre will be very long, and we are able to eliminate a fair number of people on that list. The list of the people who are actually likely to have been affected because they were in the area where the earthquake took place is much smaller, but our task over the next few days is to get into the townships, into the local areas where very accurate registration of foreign nationals is kept by Japanese local authorities, and try and get as much detail as we can. And indeed, as we do so, we are finding that individuals are beginning to report in and say that they're safe. One of the names which we were given this morning, I understand, has already been in touch with his family to say that he is safe.